Ladies and gentlemen, growing up in a world where noise is often mistaken for power, I learned something very different. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. We live in a time when everyone is speaking, shouting, posting, tweeting, performing, and in all that chaos, we forget the value of the quiet. We forget that in the pause, in the stillness, is where real power gathers. It's in silence that ideas are born, visions become clear, and strength is forged. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about silence that comes from suppression or fear. I'm not asking anyone to sit down and shut up. I'm talking about intentional silence, the kind that listens before it speaks. The kind that watches when others are busy showing off, the kind that lets actions speak louder than words. I remember moments in my journey, from Bollywood to Hollywood to the United Nations stage, when being silent was my biggest move. I didn't always have to respond, I didn't always have to defend, I didn't always need to explain, because I knew who I was. And when you know who you are, you don't have to shout it from the rooftops. You show it through what you do. Silence sharpens your instincts. It teaches you patience. It teaches you discipline. And let me tell you, discipline, that's where the magic is. That's where dreams come alive. I've learned that the loudest room isn't always the most powerful one, and the most powerful person in the room. Often, it's the one listening, watching, strategizing, not the one talking over everyone. So if you want everything in life, respect, love, success, peace, start by being silent long enough to hear your own voice. Trust me, it knows the way, because at the end of the day, you don't need to announce your worth. Just be so good they can't ignore you. In a world that constantly encourages us to be louder, more visible, and more outspoken, it's easy to confuse noise with power. We often assume that the loudest voice in the room must be the strongest, the most confident, or the most important. But real strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it chooses to remain quiet. Silence, when used with intention and awareness, becomes a powerful strategy, not a sign of weakness or submission. Being silent doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean you have nothing to say or that you're afraid to speak. Instead, it's about choosing your moment. It's about knowing when to listen, when to absorb, and when to strike. Silence allows you to observe your surroundings, to understand people's intentions, and to see the truth behind the words being spoken. In that space of stillness, you gain clarity that those caught up in noise often miss. There's also a deep sense of confidence that comes with silence. When you know who you are, you don't need to prove yourself constantly. You don't need to compete for attention. You don't feel the urge to respond to every criticism or defend every decision. You stand firm in your truth, knowing that your worth is not defined by how loudly you speak, but by how powerfully you act. Some of the most successful people in the world operate quietly, choosing silence as their edge. They don't reveal all their thoughts. They don't waste energy on meaningless debates. They listen, learn, and move with purpose. And when they do speak, people listen, because their words carry weight. So rather than rushing to fill every silence, we should learn to sit with it, to use it, because in silence we reclaim our power. We step out of the chaos and into control. We learn that real influence doesn't need volume, it needs vision. And sometimes, silence is the clearest, loudest message of all. Silence, when practiced intentionally, becomes one of the most powerful tools for personal growth and transformation. It's not the silence of being silenced, it's the silence we choose for ourselves. In a world that moves fast and demands constant reaction, choosing to pause, to be still, and to remain quiet is an act of strength and self-awareness. Intentional silence creates space for thought, for observation, for alignment. When we are silent by choice, we are not retreating from life, but actually engaging with it on a deeper level. In the quiet, we begin to notice things we usually miss: the subtext of a conversation, the mood in a room, the motivation behind someone's words. We start to understand not just what is happening, but why it's happening. Silence sharpens our perception and gives us the advantage of insight before action, and with that insight comes power, the kind that is calm, collected, and conscious. More than anything, intentional silence teaches discipline. It takes discipline not to react to every provocation. It takes discipline to listen when you're dying to speak. It takes even more discipline to hold your energy when everyone else is busy proving theirs. But that discipline is what separates those who succeed with impact from those who just chase attention. Silence builds emotional resilience. It teaches you to choose your battles, to conserve your energy for what truly matters, and to master your responses rather than being ruled by them. When you cultivate this habit of purposeful silence, you're not avoiding the world, you're preparing to face it more intelligently. You become more centered, more focused, and more aware of yourself and your environment. You realize that not every situation requires a reaction, not every insult needs a reply, and not every opportunity needs to be chased noisily. You let the world speak first, and when you do respond, your voice carries more weight because it's backed by thought, wisdom, and clarity. In that intentional stillness, you are not passive, you are powerful. There is a timeless truth that often gets overlooked in a world obsessed with speaking, posting, and performing. Actions speak louder than words. In fact, your actions define you far more than anything you say. While words can inspire, promise, or persuade, it is action that builds trust, credibility, and respect. People may listen to what you say, but they believe what you do. When your actions are consistent, intentional, and aligned with your values, they become your most powerful form of communication. Too often, we feel the need to explain ourselves, to convince others of our worth, or to respond to every doubt and criticism with words. But the truth is, real confidence doesn't beg for approval. It simply shows up and delivers. You don't need to tell people you're strong when your choices, your work ethic, and your discipline already show it. You don't need to announce your intentions when your track record reveals your ambition. The most impactful people are not the loudest. They are the ones who lead by example. When your actions reflect integrity, consistency, and effort, you create a reputation that speaks on your behalf. You stop needing validation from the outside because you've built substance within. And the beautiful thing is, people notice. Even in silence, your effort is seen, your presence is felt, and your impact is remembered. It's not about being flashy or dramatic. It's about being real, dependable, and focused. Staying committed to action over talk also keeps you grounded. It shifts your energy from performance to progress. You begin to realize that success doesn't come from how much noise you make, but from how well you move, even when no one's watching. Silence, paired with strong, intentional action, becomes a kind of quiet authority. And that kind of authority doesn't need to be shouted. It walks into a room and is felt. In the end, listening is one of the most underrated and overlooked forms of power. In a culture that often rewards the loudest voice in the room, we forget that true influence often belongs to the one who listens the most. When you choose to listen rather than speak, you gain access to insight, perspective, and understanding that others miss. It's through listening that you learn what people truly mean, what they really need, and how they actually feel beneath the surface of their words. The person who listens observes not just the content of conversations, but also the emotional undercurrents. They notice what's being said and what's being left unsaid. This awareness creates an edge. It equips you to respond with intelligence rather than impulse. It allows you to connect more deeply with people, to lead with empathy, and to make decisions rooted in clarity rather than noise. Listening also makes you a better problem solver because you're not just reacting. You're processing, reflecting, and then acting with intention. Being a good listener also communicates something powerful to the world. That you are secure enough not to dominate the spotlight. You're not rushing to prove a point or compete for attention. Instead, you're focused on learning, growing, and understanding the bigger picture. That kind of presence is rare, and it commands respect without ever having to demand it. In leadership, relationships, and personal growth, listening is transformative. It builds trust. It diffuses tension. It opens the door for real dialogue and honest connection. And when you finally do speak, your words carry more weight, because people know you've taken the time to truly understand the moment. The quiet observer often becomes the wisest voice. In the silence of listening, you gather knowledge, gain perspective, and develop patience. These are the qualities that build lasting success. So while others rush to be heard, remember that listening is not a passive act. It's an intentional, powerful choice. And often it's the listener, not the speaker, who walks away with the real advantage. Your world doesn't remember what you claimed you would do, it remembers what you actually did. Silence has a unique ability to create the space necessary for discipline and clarity to grow. In the constant motion of daily life, surrounded by distractions and noise, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But when you step into silence, when you allow yourself to disconnect from the chatter and the rush, you begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. That clarity helps you refocus your goals, understand your values, and decide where to place your energy. It is in these quiet moments that you reconnect with your purpose. Discipline is born in silence. It takes restraint to resist the urge to respond to every situation emotionally. It takes focus to hold back from giving in to distractions or temptations. Choosing silence is choosing self-control. It means being strong enough to pause, to wait, and to prepare instead of reacting impulsively. In that pause lies the opportunity to choose a better response, to think ahead, and to take action that is aligned with your long-term vision. Clarity is often drowned in the noise of opinions, expectations, and fear. But when you embrace silence, you filter out all of that. You begin to see your path with sharper vision. You understand what you want, not what others expect of you. It's in that quiet space that your inner voice grows stronger, guiding you to make decisions from a place of truth rather than pressure. You stop chasing everything and start focusing on the things that actually move you forward. Silence, when practiced regularly, sharpens your mind and strengthens your will. It trains you to become less reactive and more intentional. You learn to respond with purpose rather than emotion. This kind of discipline is what turns potential into reality. It's what separates those who dream from those who do. Clarity, paired with discipline, becomes a force of direction and momentum. So when you choose silence, you're not standing still, you're building power. You're developing the focus to act with precision and the strength to stay the course, quietly, consistently, and purposefully. Self-worth is not something that needs to be shouted from the rooftops or constantly reinforced by others. When you know your value, you don't need to constantly announce it. In fact, those who are secure in their worth often don't seek validation through words or external praise. Their actions, consistency, and character speak for them. True self-worth is quiet. It's an inner knowing that doesn't need to be demonstrated by seeking attention or approval. It's built on a deep understanding of who you are, what you stand for, and the confidence that comes from knowing you don't need anyone's affirmation to believe in yourself. The need for validation can be a powerful force, but it can also be draining. When you constantly seek recognition from others, you risk losing sight of what truly matters, your own sense of purpose and fulfillment. The desire for external validation can pull you into a cycle of seeking praise, competing for attention, or over-explaining your actions. But when you have solid self-worth, there's no need to chase those things. You know your value, and that's enough. You understand that validation is not the source of your strength. It is an outcome of your consistency, your work, and your integrity. Instead of announcing your worth, let your life and actions reveal it. Let your achievements, your kindness, your perseverance, and your choices demonstrate who you are. The people who respect you will do so not because you told them to, but because they see the substance you carry within. This is the kind of recognition that truly matters, the kind that is rooted in your authentic self, not in a performance for others. Ultimately, the quieter you are about seeking approval, the louder your true worth becomes. Your reputation builds on the solid foundation of your actions, not your words. When you stop chasing recognition, you begin to attract it naturally because people are drawn to those who are confidently and quietly secure in their voice.